response, and we're seeing this in Oman, for example, and Bahrain in the past few days, is to engage with the opposition, engage with the various stakeholders in society and reform projects, discussions about the kind of future, the demands for the public. That would be what would hopefully keep social peace, but it also address legitimate concerns that the publics have in these countries.
Has the fact that Libya has not followed Tunisia and Egypt, with the regime falling swiftly, made it easier for states like Saudi Arabia to invoke a security response?
I'd say precisely and preemptively. Libya is an example where the people have to fight the regime. And have to resort to all sorts of means, not just peaceful protests, but possibly also violent acts against loyalists in the military and the security. If that is the model that is going to be setting the tone for the rest of the Arab world, certainly many countries in the region are going to be concerned, because the publics now will be pushed not only into peaceful protests, but into challenging the legitimacy and the authority of the state.
Tariq Youssef, many thanks indeed. The thoughts there of Tariq Youssef, Dean at the Dubai School of Government. Now, there's a flight of a different kind going on inside Libya at the moment. It's one for food. Later on in this news hour, we'll take a look at how the uprising is leaving some Libyans without the most basic of supplies. Now, though, to Somalia, it's emerged that more than 50 African Union peacekeepers have been killed in fighting there over the past 2 weeks. Their deaths come amid a major offensive against Islamist al-Shabaab fighters who control large parts of the country and the capital, Mogadishu. A large proportion of those killed are believed to be from Burundi, which is one of 2 nations that are providing the bulk of African Union soldiers there. Now, this is quite a high death toll for the African Union, which normally keeps such casualty numbers firmly under wraps. In Egypt, the country's former interior minister has pleaded not guilty to charges of money laundering and profiteering. Habib El Adli was arrested last month and is also widely blamed for being behind brutal attacks by security forces on protesters during the recent uprising. Shireen Tadros has been following the case from Cairo.
First came the ousting, and now comes the justice. Habib El Adli, Egypt's former interior minister, mobbed by demonstrators shouting, "Execute him," as he was leaving court. El Adli is on trial for money laundering and profiteering. But people here want to see him tried for ordering the police to open fire on protesters during the revolution. And that's not all. This man says El Adli is responsible for setting prisoners free and deliberately causing chaos during the protests. This woman tells us it's not just El Adli, but all corrupt Interior Ministry officials who have policed with an iron fist that should stand trial.
For over 10 years, Habib El Adli was the face of one of the most hated institutions here, the Interior Ministry, as well as the security apparatus that came under its command. People are still asking for that security apparatus to be dismantled.
That's what this protest was about late Friday outside the port city of Alexandria's state security building. Witnesses say police inside were shredding ID cards and documents that could incriminate them and their bosses in the future. As Egypt enters a new era, people still want justice for the past. They see it as the only way to guarantee a different, better future. Shireen Tadros, AlJazeera, Cairo.
Live now to Cairo, and our correspondent, Ayman Mokhel-Dean. It's clear, Ayman, that feelings are running pretty high. What are the chances of him getting a fair trial?
Well, that's a very good question, actually, Adrian, because a lot of people have been critical, in fact, that he has not been charged, as you heard in that report, with more severe crimes against the protesters, particularly involving the ordering of killing protesters or opening fire against them. But some are also making the argument that in this particular incident, it's important to go after the cases or the charges that you can prove easily. And that has been the defense of the Attorney General, the General Prosecutor. He's been at least reportedly making the argument that he has to go based on what is the easiest evidence and try to bring about justice as quickly as possible. He is the first minister being charged. That in of itself is significant, and more importantly, symbolically, he was a very close ally of Mubarak, so he's sending the message at least that this era of high-ranking individuals being out of the reach of the law is no longer applicable here in the country.
It's clear from the pictures we saw that people, as I said, feel very passionately about the security apparatus in Egypt. The protests there and today's trial, anything to do with the demonstrations that we saw in Alexandria in the north, which also involved people going into the security headquarters there and trying to prevent people allegedly destroying documents?
You're absolutely right in the sense that Egypt's security forces are notoriously hated here in the country. For many years, they were the face of this regime, many of them accused of brutality, corruption, torture. They were seen as exploiting their power in the security and police services to their own personal benefits against the interests of the people. So you can see that with the trial of a high-profile ranking official such as Habib al-Adli, what this means for other senior officials in the Ministry of Interior. That's why there was a great deal of speculation over the past couple of weeks that these officials who are in the Ministry of Interior, senior members of the police force and other state security officials, could perhaps begin to destroy any evidence that implicates them in any wrongdoing over the years. Over the past 24 hours, we have seen now a series of flash protests against these buildings where a lot of the evidence was reportedly being damaged, other paper trails, IDs, what have you. And so what we saw boil over yesterday in the city of Alexandria, we have reports that similar scenes are repeating themselves across Cairo and other governorates in Egypt. It gives you a sense of the distrust and the paranoia that the people here have against their own security forces, and is certainly putting the military in a difficult situation. On one hand, it needs the police to maintain law and order, but certainly the police forces in Egypt lack zero credibility in the eyes of the protesters.
All right, Ayman, many thanks indeed. Ayman Mokildeen reporting live there from Cairo. Italy's Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi is due in court today to face allegations of corruption. His legal team insists that he will attend all of his hearings. Berlusconi is accused of fraud and embezzlement over the acquisition of television rights on his Mediaset empire. Now, he had his immunity from prosecution largely withdrawn back in January. Berlusconi faces a separate trial in April on charges that he paid for sex with an underage nightclub dancer. He denies all of the charges. Maurizio Capata is the diplomatic correspondent from the newspaper Corriere della Sera and joins us now live from Rome. As we said there, the Prime Minister apparently will attend the court proceedings. Do you think he'll turn up?
No, I don't think he will go today because his lawyer says that there was a problem in the communication of this appointment to the lawyer of his son, Pier Silvio Berlusconi. So there is a formal problem that avoid he can be there, they say. And so I don't think he will be there. His lawyers, which is also is a lawyer which is also an MP of the Berlusconi's party, Mr. Ghedini, told yesterday to the Tribunal of Milan that Mr. Berlusconi is available to go to attend to the 4 trials he has in that tribunal any month.